Howdly doodly. This is Thursday, February 10th, 2011. I don't know what that means, but that's the date. I'm gonna make a video response to my buddy Philosophical's Who Am I? Where Are My Boundaries? This is actually, coincidentally, a video I was going to make, but I thought Phil did a nice job talking about it. I'm also going to talk a little bit about Alan Watts' video entitled On Causality. I noticed someone commented on Phil's video saying, or asking, why would someone care about something like this? What's the purpose? And I think that this concept, re-examining our sense of self, re-examining our culturally created identities of who we think we are, I think it's a profound topic that is that warrants a closer examination. I think profound changes can happen, and I know they do happen, when we begin to view parts of the external universe. I say parts, but it's all subjective elements of the same thing, but I'm just going to use parts because that's the limitation of language. So what would happen if we began to view the external world as an extension of ourselves? I think it's a really beautiful topic. Phil talked a little bit about the twinkle in the eye in Alan Watts' On Causality. And what Alan Watts says is, when does the me begin? Does it begin in the fetus? Does it begin in that twinkle in the eye of my father? Does it begin when my father was born? Similarly, when we try to define the sun, what is it? Is it the actual physical spherical shape of that planetary body or mass? Or could we define the sun as the extent of its heat or the extent of its light? So it's an issue of framing, and it's an issue of the extent to which worlds and reality is created by language. In my most recent experience with a few fun guys from psilocybania, usually the abstractions of money and language and these culturally manufactured symbols, this realm, I see it very clearly, and I don't think I'm alone in this. Our programmed minds kind of dissolve away in this state, and you begin to see things for what they are, from a lens that's closer to the purity of, or rawness of, reality, if you want to put it like that. At the end of my experience, I just didn't feel the need to speak. I just kept smiling with my friends, because anything I could have desired to say, I was in a place beyond language. I often think of how the Indian philosopher Meher Baba stopped speaking for the last 45 years of his life, which is quite extraordinary. And in that moment, I kind of knew how he felt. At least I like to think I did. Just had no need to speak. Another example of this, viewing the universe as an extension of ourselves, is what Phil mentioned in most indigenous groups. And that is when someone in the community is sick, I am sick. When my forest is being chopped down by Western civilization, I am being chopped down. When my rivers are being, or the rivers in my land base, the land base on which I live, are being poisoned and polluted, then I feel that way. And there's this kind of logic or that language creates, and it really manifests as how we experience reality, how we view ourselves moving through this crazy thing called the universe. On Causality, Alan Watts talks about the Great Depression and how there was no real lack of anything tangible, anything real that has value. There was no lack of food. There was no lack of shelter or water or any of these other things that we need to survive. We need to feed this 50 trillion celled organism here. What there was just a lack of money. That's it. It's a lack of the symbol we've created, into which value has been transported. So, and I love the metaphor that he follows this up with. Alan says, saying that I can't do something without money. Oh, I can't, be who I want to be. I can't have I can't be passionate in my job. I can't contribute my gifts to the world because I don't have the money. If only I had those green pieces of paper. But saying this is the exact same thing as saying, oh, we can't build a house today. No inches. I love it. It hits it right on the nail. We create stories of the world. And oftentimes we mistake these stories, these abstractions, for the world itself. And it's a really interesting concept. I'm going to read a little bit. I'll mention one more thing. In another Alan Watts video, The Art of Meditation, Part 1, and this is a beautiful thing that he does. He says, reality is not a concept. He's talking about trying to understand what reality is. And he says, reality isn't a concept. It's not an idea. Reality is, and then he rings a bell. It goes, he says, that's reality. You can't define it. It can't be described in words. It's ineffable. It's indescribable. It's what Terence McKenna calls the nexus of reality, or Alan Watts sometimes calls it the ground of being. And I think this is what religions refer to, also mainstream religions, when they say God. And that's that. I'm going to read a little bit from Alan Watts. This book is the book on the taboo against knowing who you are. Brilliant stuff. Here we go. I know, stay with me here. I think you'll like this. Where am I? Okay. Alan Watts says, when this new sensation of self arises, and by this he's referring to viewing yourself as something outside the skin-encapsulated ego, outside this physical sack of flesh here. When this new sensation of self arises, it is at once exhilarating and a little disconcerting. It is like the moment when you first got the knack of swimming or riding a bike. There is the feeling that you are not doing it yourself, but that it is somehow happening on its own, and you wonder whether you will lose it, as indeed you may if you try forcibly to hold on to it. In immediate contrast to the old feeling, there is indeed a certain passivity to the sensation, as if you were a leaf blown along in the wind, until you realize that you are both the leaf and the wind. The world outside your skin is just as much you as the world inside. They move together inseparably, and at first you feel a little out of control because the world outside is so much vaster than the world inside. Yet you soon discover that you are able to go ahead with your ordinary activities, to work and make decisions as ever, though somehow this is less of a drag. Your body is no longer a corpse which the ego has to animate and lug around. There is a feeling of the ground holding you up, and of hills lifting you when you climb them. Air breathes itself in and out of your lungs, and instead of looking and listening, light and sound come to you on their own. Eyes see and ears hear as wind blows and water flows. All space becomes your mind. Time carries you along like a river, but never flows out of the present. The more it goes, the more it stays, and you no longer have to fight or kill it. That's one of numerous lovely passages from Alan Watts. I could read a few more things, but I don't know if I will. I won't. I'll try and summarize a little of what I was going to read. And something interesting is how this connects with our conventional beliefs in terms of scientific materialist perspectives, the Newtonian physics, and the idea that everything is connected totally shatters the conventional scientific paradigms. And this idea of there not being a causal determinant for another action. You know, what am I? What am I? The salad I consumed today, and this is something I wrote down in a comment, is an extension of many things. The sun's rays that facilitated photosynthesis, the earth's minerals that contributed to growing the vegetables, the rivers, oceans, and lakes that enabled the rain to fall and nourish what is now nourishing this body. And in this way, everything is just a flowing process, and there are no separate events because it's all just one event. When I consume the salad becomes me, and the food that enters the body is the body. A lot of times, I used to feel really isolated and separate, and I still do sometimes while engaging in different activities and behaviors in this culture. But changing this reality tunnel, or changing this lens through which you're viewing everything else, really changes the reality of what you're dealing with. And it no longer becomes this, the universe, no longer becomes this mechanical, rational, separate, dog-eat-dog world of competition and individualistic strivings to get to the top of this whatever economic or social or political ladder. You become your frame of mind and your being kind of becomes oriented with community and mutuality and codependence. And it's a really radical shift and break from the past. What we've just everything in this culture reinforces in us. And I think this is really a huge part of the new story and the new transition and that is this new belief system that is slowly becoming a prominent aspect of modern sciences in quantum physics and the book Phil often talks about spontaneous evolution and epigenetics and the belief that we're controlled by our environments, but also they control us and we control it. It's a paradox. So this is a part of the new story, and this book is outrageous. It's phenomenal. I don't know what else to say about it. I find myself when talking with those fun guys from psilocybania, I find myself just saying, "Oh man, wow, oh my goodness." I have nothing else to say because at a certain point, language just becomes an abstraction and a symbol for what's really here. Is this green, this Brazilian flag I have on my desk? Or is it only that because it's surrounded by the yellow and the blue, which distinguish it from all other colors? Anyway, it's an interesting topic. Thanks for bringing this up, Phil, and have a lovely Thursday. Tchauzinho.